Good evening, friends, and welcome to a Friday night forensics with Ed Wallace and DutyRon. We are two retired New York City police detectives, and if you like all things true crime related from that detective's perspective, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you'll get all things DutyRon and this guy, Ed Wallace, when we go live or upload another video. Tonight, we're going to get into a conversation about Bryan Kohberger's defense, getting the training records through the court process and the plans to demo 1122 King Road. Ed, how you doing tonight? Where are you? In the undisclosed location?
No, I'm at my beach house down in Jersey.
Great to see you. Friday night forensics. Everybody loves this, Ed. I'm glad that you brought it up and you started this Friday night forensics idea. You know, we got a lot to cover here, but before we get into it, I want to just say thank you, as we always do, to our subscribers, the replay viewers, the super thanks folks who leave us super chats after the lives are over when they watch the replays, the Patreon supporters, the moderators, and everyone who engages with us here on Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. This is what makes this an unbelievably great community, because you guys ask the tough questions. Ed is a forensic expert, crime scene expert. He's got a wealth of information and knowledge when it comes to this stuff. And there's nobody better to ask questions than Ed Wallace when it comes to this stuff, because he's got so much experience. So, Ed, you know, the defense is doing everything that they can to, you know, protect the rights of their client, Bryan Kohberger, who's innocent until proven guilty, standing charged with capital punishment in the murders of these 4 college students, Zayna, Ethan, Madison, and Kaylee. Before we get into the questioning and everything like that, I got some media that we're going to play. But Ed, I wanted to just get your overview, your thoughts on that demo. And I know you've spoken loud and clear about it, but I wanted to just get your thoughts on that and why your thoughts are such.
I feel, and I've said this time and time again, for those of you who are frequenting our show, it's inappropriate to demo the house at this time. Wait for the case to be adjudicated. Wait for the criminal case to be completed. And after the verdict has been reached in the case, then fine. Until then, leave the house alone. I don't understand the rush to take the house down. Yeah. It makes no sense to me, you know. And yes, we have 3D laser scans of the house. Yeah, both the defense team and the law enforcement officers did it. Yes, okay, that gives you some great details, but there may be a trip to the house that the jury may want, and if you take the house down, they're not going to get that. There are things that the scans can give you, but there are other things like sights and sounds that you can't get from those things.
You know, Ed, you said it great there, and I've heard you say this before, but so many people are screaming from the rooftops. What's the urgency to remove this home, to demo this home? And there's speculation and people thinking that University of Idaho now has ownership of that location. The crime scene has been released, and they're doing it for the money factor of like students not wanting to come there, if that is there. But if they go ahead with their plans, they're going to make that into a memorial. And if it's a memorial, like we said before we went live, it's going to be a gawking site. People are going to come there. It's going to be a tourist kind of attraction. There's going to be people who will travel just to see it, and so forth. So,
look, as I said, it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. I mean, it's just that simple. And it's, in my opinion, very disrespectful to the families of the victim, because
they were asked.
The university asked them what they would like them to do. And as far as I'm aware, the families have told the university, hold off.
Yeah, it's true. And we heard that through their attorney, the Gonzalez attorney, Shannon Gray. We're going to play a little piece from him. Kimberly, thank you for the $20 super chat. She said, nobody's better than you two. I'm not going to say you're not right, but there might be better. So thank you.
I'm sure there's better.
Yes, there is. Crime on a Dime. Happy almost birthday. Tomorrow is Crime on a Dime's birthday. So thank you. She says, hi, DutyRon and Ed, and thank you so much for keeping us informed. We're doing the best that we can. Like, listen, we have covered this case up and down, every different angle. We had our cell phone expert. We had our auto crime expert. We have Ed Wallace. We had Barbara Butcher. We had Dr. Murray Marks. The list goes on and with our forensics experts. We had Luke Hall, who was a representative of Faro Industries, who does the 3D laser scanner. And of course, Luke said, Ed, and I want to question you about this. Luke said, it's used commonly all the time for juries. The 3D laser scans is just like being inside that home. And of course, he sells the technology. So he's going to say, yeah, you can go ahead and demo the home. But we did ask him outright, and he said, that's a case-by-case decision that gets made. And this is a quadruple murder, capital punishment crime. I think it would be in the best interest of justice to definitely keep that. Let us know what you think in the comment section. Put a 1 in the chat if you think the home should be preserved, if you think it should be taken down, and you agree with University of Idaho. Put a 2 in the chat. I'd like to see what we get out of that. Ann Taylor fought, for discovery, the training records for 3 specific police officers. She didn't mention, it's not mentioned who those police officers are, and what department they're with, whether they're with the Idaho State Crime Lab, whether they're with the Moscow Police Department. I think there's quite a bit of 1s coming in the chat, not to jump off of what I'm trying to say here, but she wanted the training records. I want to get your thoughts on it, Ed, but we're going to listen to her ask 9 days ago Judge John Judge in court for these records that she was granted recently, and now they have them. So let's take a peek at this. I didn't set it up, Ed. Shame on me. I had it set up before we went live. Here's Ann Taylor battling on behalf of Bryan Kohberger.
I come here asking the court to compel discovery. I'm seeking an order directing that we receive this discovery. I'm not seeking any other kind of sanction. I don't come here saying that the prosecutor has done something wrong. I come here saying that there are things that we have a disagreement about whether I should get them or when I should get them, and we seek a court order to assist us in this regard. Yesterday, we filed an exhibit that related to our motions to compel, and the purpose of that exhibit was to show the court how the discovery is coming in, what we are leading through to try to find the information, and to let the court know that our office is making extraordinary efforts. Mr. Kohberger's team works nonstop, and when we ask for discovery, it's because we have reason to believe that it exists. I wanted the court of counsel to be aware it's not a fishing expedition. These are real items that are really necessary to investigate this case and prepare Mr. Kohberger's defense. So with that as the background and the frequent communication with the prosecutor's office to try to obtain the materials we need, we have come to an impasse in a few areas, and that's what brings us to court today. As the court knows, discovery is governed by statute 1309 and Idaho Criminal Rule 16. The purpose of discovery is really to prevent an unfair trial, to prevent trial by surprise, and also to protect a charged person's rights to meet their defense. It protects their Sixth Amendment rights to have a sufficient and a prepared counsel, I should say, as we have a duty to investigate the case. So in preparing our case for Mr. Kohberger, we've asked for several things that we still need. I'll talk first about request number 6 in the first motion to compel, and that stems from discovery request 160. It's training records. These are training records of 3 specific police officers. Your Honor, we have not asked for training records for every officer that has had anything to do with the case. I would not want to stand here and let the court think that this is an exhaustive list of the officers that we might need training records for. But these are 3 officers that we requested them for, and the state has indicated they're not willing to give us the training records. These 3 officers are officers that have each conducted critical interviews with critical witnesses in the case, made decisions about the interviews, made decisions about evidence, and conducted other kinds of investigations. We seek their training records to understand their processes. The training records, Your Honor, they are records that we've been able to obtain from various police agencies in the past. In this circumstance, they're not records that I can find on my own. These are not things that are on the internet. They're not going to just hand them over to me. The 2 of the officers that we've requested them about are Idaho State Police officers. I have often received training records for Idaho State Police officers in the correct.
Ed, did you just hear her say 2 of the 3 were Idaho State Police officers? Did I hear that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so listening with the headphones on, I got to hear it a little better. So 2 out of the 3 are, in fact, Idaho State police officers, and that has to be the crime lab that responded. I want to bring us back on together.
Well, she said these officers interviewed witnesses. Typically, crime scene people don't do that.
Right, but she made in the statement they conducted critical interviews with witnesses in this case and made decisions about interviews and evidence. So that might cover these Idaho State police officers. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to ask you flat out, because you have testified as an expert witness in many instances, and also as a New York City probably police detective, right? Mm-hmm. In cases you've gone on. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe unbeknownst to you, but I would assume that in big cases, defense attorneys will ask for Ed Wallace's credentials and would.
Yeah, if I'm being brought in as a forensic expert and the prosecutor is going to move me in as an expert, which means that the judge will make this decision, and if I'm granted expert status, I can give opinion. So if that's the case, typically what ends up happening is the prosecutor will give the judge and the defense attorney a copy of my curriculum vitae for them to go over with a fine-tooth comb. Right.
So I want to remind the audience that later on, we're going to be taking Q&A. So hashtag Ed, hashtag DutyRon for your questions to be answered live interactive on the live interactive live stream here. So hold your questions until we get towards the end. Sonia P., I thank you for being here. And yes, the Moscow Police Department, it's a fact. The police chief and Captain Lanier, Chief Fry and Captain Lanier admitted publicly on interviews that they immediately reached out to the Idaho State Crime Lab once they realized the enormity of what their small department was getting themselves into with this case. So, Ed, and you said right away that was one of the best things that they did to get professionals and experts in there.
Absolutely. They knew this was beyond their capabilities, and they got on the hot phone and got the help.
And can you expand why that was so important for them to do that ASAP?
So that the crime scene wasn't improperly processed.
Right.
It's as simple as that.
And any good defense attorney, Ed, is going to pick apart in defense of their client anything that's brought against them that's going to be hurtful towards.
Look, many people who aren't in the criminal justice system may look at what she's doing and say, oh, this is total BS and so forth and so on. Yeah, she's doing her job. Okay, this is what she gets paid to do. All right, her job is not to find her client innocent or prove that he's innocent. Her job is to create reasonable doubt. So she has questions about 3 of the possible how many people that were involved in this investigation in law enforcement. And she's targeted these 3 for whatever reasons. We don't know what's going on. Maybe they found critical information or critical pieces of evidence that are damaging to her client. And so what she's looking to do is turn them from heroes into zeros. Right. If you can destroy the character of these officers before trial, then everything they've touched gets tainted. And she may be able to make an argument that to a judge that because they weren't trained, they weren't certified, they didn't follow proper procedures, and they handled this evidence, then whatever the lab does should make an application not to have it admitted to court.
Right. And that's the job of any good defense attorney. It's standard operating procedure. Let me just refer back to some of the notes that you and I, that I've taken in during the course of our live streams. 6 local detectives, 60 FBI, and 2 behavioral analysis personnel from the FBI, 13 the state Idaho police investigators, 81 law enforcement from local, state, and fed, total 81 81 police personnel from the state, local, and federal. And I'll break it down again for those of you who are interested in this. 6 local detectives, 60 FBI, with an additional 2 behavioral analysis folks, 13 Idaho State Crime Lab investigators, a total of 81 law enforcement from around that area. So very interesting. And Ann Taylor is very specific that she's not requesting all of the credentials because she knows damn well that they're going to be brought on as expert witnesses. And the district attorney, when questioning them, is going to ask them, as we heard in Murdoch trial, all these different trials that we listen to publicly, what's your credential? How long have you been a police officer? How long have you been a detective? How long have you been in the specific unit? All of that's going to come into play, and we're going to get to listen to this. Here's a piece from our good friend Brian Enton. I'm going to play just some of this, and we'll get right back to you guys and your questions.
Bryan Kohberger's lawyers asked, and the judge said yes, talking about a demand by Kohberger's legal team for background records of 3 Idaho police officers who took part in the investigation of last November's stabbing deaths near the University of Idaho. Kohberger is the only suspect in the horrific murders of 4 university students. Prosecutors say they will seek the maximum punishment for murder in that state, which is the death penalty. And I want to bring in Jana Spilber. She is a defense attorney, trial analyst, and former prosecutor. Thanks for being with us, Jana. Explain to us what the defense could be doing here. Why would they be so interested? Because it was a bit of a fight for them to get these police training records for those 3 officers.
Sure. So what the defense team is doing here is investigating the investigators. And that's important for a number of reasons, not the least of which is evidence is only as good as its source. And in a case like this, which is especially heinous, quadruple murder, and just horrible, we only have one suspect, and that suspect really came about as a needle in a haystack. So from a defense perspective, it is really crucial to find out the training, the experience, and even the motive of the investigators that actually pinned down Bryan Kohberger as the sole suspect in this very horrific case.
So in a case this complicated, is it common for them to request these records? Like, would you kind of do that no matter what, just to see what's there? Or do you think this shows that this is going to be part of their strategy in terms of maybe going after the police? Is that going to be an important part of their defense strategy?
So it's both. Of course, as a defense attorney, you want everything that the prosecutor is going to provide to you, and then you can figure out what you're going to use, what you're not going to use. And keep in mind also, when you're talking about an investigation like this, the defense team is sort of at a disadvantage because we're not the ones who get the call in the middle of the night to go to the scene of the crime, right? We have to stand back. It's the prosecutor's job to do that. And then we have to hope that the prosecution gives us everything and anything that they were able to call and provide. So it's really, from a defense perspective, we got to get in there and ask for what we want. But from a strategy standpoint, I mean, I don't want to really make this comparison just yet, but let's take a trip down memory lane, right? Almost 30 years ago to the O.J. Simpson murder case, where in that case, it was the cops who tainted the evidence, which really lost that case for the prosecution. It might be a similar strategy here.
Are you surprised that the prosecution didn't just give these records up immediately? Because, we wouldn't even be talking about this now if they just handed them over. There was a little bit of a fight in court. The judge made a ruling and said, no, you've got to give the training records over.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a fight because you do want to keep some of this information private from the public. Just like you don't want to dox these police officers, right? But it is still important from a defense perspective. So you can keep that part of it secret, but the defense team can still have access to the important part of those training records. And it was really important for the defense team to make this request. This is a capital case, right? They're trying to keep their client off death row. This is crucial information. It may lead someplace, it may not, but that's the defense team's call to make.
And unfortunately, with the gag order, we don't get to see any of the records or most of the documents like that at this point, at least. So we can't really decide whether they're important or not important. That's what's going to be so interesting about this trial, is so much is going to come out that we've never heard before during the trial. The trial now set for October, Jonna. Do you think that's actually going to happen? Like, you know, when they first set the date, everyone said, there's no way, but no one has really complained about that date yet in terms of the defense or prosecution. Do you think we may actually have a trial at the end of the year?
It seems so quick for a case of this magnitude. And, you know, one of the things that I really have a question, maybe we will find this out later, is I'm looking at the absence of evidence in this case. There should be a whole lot of DNA, a whole lot of forensic evidence in Bryan Kohberger's car, whatever car if he was the culprit, however he got out of there, that DNA is going to exist.
Ed, trust me, I'm going to be asking you about this car and the evidence right after this. I see Ed just like shaking his head in the background.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. This is only 30 more seconds of this.
You wouldn't be able to get rid of it if you tried. Where is all that evidence? This case is just weird to me because it's not, you know, you can't say.
All right, we'll stop it on that. Where is all that evidence? Ed, that is a question that so many people have. The probable cause affidavit, all it needs to do is the standard for a grand jury is just probable cause. And the probable cause affidavit is not all of the cards that the defense, that the prosecution has. The defense is trying to fish and get as much information as they can before this trial starts. But under Idaho state Idaho law, the prosecution doesn't have to give everything over until the trial starts. So it seems unfair that they can't have everything. And I just wanted to get your thoughts. As a crime scene investigator, processed over 2,500 crime scenes. Where's the evidence? Is it in the car? Is there potential for that evidence that we don't know about? Is at 1122 King Road and they collected it, and also at the Pullman apartment and in Poconos?
There's potential evidence everywhere that Bryan went. Okay, so the potential evidence at the murder scene, potential evidence in his vehicle, potential evidence in his campus apartment, potential evidence in his campus office, potential evidence in his family's house in Pennsylvania. Okay, and anywhere along the route that he was driving after the homicides were committed that night, could have ditched a lot of evidence along that driving route. But absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Okay, so just because maybe they didn't find a whole lot of evidence doesn't mean that he didn't do it or he wasn't there. Okay, here's the thing. There was a lot of time for him to clean up and dispose of evidence between the time of the murders and the time he was picked up for the murders.
November 13th to December 3rd, the end of December, right? It was the last day in December. And that is an awful lot of time. That's an awful lot of time. But Ed, as you say, you know, we're not getting the tip of the iceberg is this probable cause affidavit. That's the little trinkets of where information that we're getting. But the bulk of what they have, the cell phone, we had Tiffany Lennart come on. She's a cell phone expert. She talked about the geofencing. We haven't really heard much about that in depth. We heard an overview of it, but his digital footprint, the pings at that location, although we know you need more than just that. His car on video, there's videos that are being leaked I'm not, you and I, of course, we would never get into that kind of, showing that kind of stuff. I know people are on YouTube and online putting out these leaked videos. We're here to try to bring attention to the case, but also to not try to hurt it. I think that everything and anything from video surveillance should be coming out during the trial, when the trial commences, and not any time before. And Ed, I don't know if you saw some of these leaked videos, and people are talking about it like wildfire, because everyone is like, they just can't get enough of this. But it's not really a good thing to talk about it. What do you got, Ed? What are you laughing on?
Well, I just had dinner with my first cousin Joseph and his wife Antoinette, and my second cousin Mark and his wife, who's expecting their first child. So Mark has, as you can see, Miss Donna has said hello to Mark. So Mark is my cousin. I just want to give them a shout out to the Sig family down here at the beach, and say thank you for hosting dinner for Margaret and I tonight. And glad you're here.
Yeah,
there he is.
There he is. Yeah,
I call him Mark Cuban because he kind of looks like Mark Cuban.
The cubes. There he is. The cubes. Hey, Mark, thank you for being here, and thank you for letting Ed go a little early. He said that he would have stayed a little bit extra, but he had a job to do here for his fans. So, but thank you. Thanks, Mark, for hosting with Ed and Margaret tonight. So Ed, let's talk to the folks about evidence, and you talking about that Locard's exchange principle. You're going to come into a crime scene, you're going to bring something in there, you're going to go out, you're going to take something out. Can you, for the umpteen time, explain that to our friends in the chat? Okay, folks. So again, Locard's exchange principle. So when two people, let's say two people and a location all converge and then separate, there's going to be a transfer of each presence from one person to the other, and from the scene to these people, and from these people to the scene upon separation. Okay, so when the perp goes into this house to commit this heinous quadruple homicide, that perp is going to leave their presence there in the house. When that perp leaves, he's going to take parts of the house with him, and parts of the 4 individuals that he killed, parts of the bedding, and so forth and so on, with him as they leave. Now, when they get into the car, potentially they're going to then transfer materials from the house, materials from the victims to the car. Okay. Now, again, it all depends on, the clothing that the individual is wearing. I mean, because there are, we could wear tie-back suits as we do the process crime scenes to commit homicides, and then try to keep yourself from shedding that type of evidence at the scenes when you're committing, wearing gloves, wearing hoods, wearing booties, so forth and so on. All these things are, can be done to trying to defeat Locard's exchange principle. Right. But that's just for you leaving your presence there. Now, if you got into your car, let's say with a tie-back suit on, and you got out of your car, and your car has fabric seats and carpets and other things, and you have a pet or whatever the case may be, well, those things can get onto your suit, and then you can transfer them into the scene of the homicide. But the house still can get on your suit, and the victim's materials can get on your suit. And then when you leave, you're taking it with you. Ed, you got to comment on this. This is not just coming from Corey. This is coming from a lot of people who are being fed a whole lot of nonsense, and they're buying into this. Ed, can you directly address this comment?
The K-bar knife sheath was found on the bed of a murder victim, and on the snap buckle was his DNA. That's all I can say. That's what's been reported. That's what's been tested. And that's what they used to help identify who the murderer or who was in possession of that knife sheath. Yeah. He's got to explain how his DNA got on that knife sheath.
And there's a ton more, and I'll have to keep saying this because people just can't absorb this. There's going to be a ton more bombshells that are going to be released during the course of this trial that we have no knowledge of right now, that are going to be oohs and ahs when it comes to the. Don't forget, Idaho State Crime Lab was there for days. Ed, wasn't it like 2 or 3 days later they were out in the street taking those tire impressions and taking photographs, and we saw the Faro 3D laser scanner. We saw them inside that house.
They were there for weeks.
Yeah, but I'm saying vigorous evidence collection in the first several days, but they definitely were there for weeks.
And they kept coming back. They kept coming back. Okay. As new leads were developed, as new information was obtained, they kept coming back and looking for further things.
Right. Yep. Hey, I just want to say hello to our good friend Will at 411 Now. Good to see you, Will. Thank you for joining. Jeff, Joey Brooklyn, Alibaba, Miss Donna Marie, Black Rose 11, Mystic Rogue. Thank you for becoming a channel member. So, quick question. Your great mods, if you pay for membership. Oh, okay. There's a question for the mods. Thank you, Jazzy Boop. Appreciate that. Debbie Galloway is here as well. We have no idea, Debbie says, how much DNA they have anywhere.
We don't. And you know the defense team wants that. And listen, by law, the defense team will get all exculpatory evidence. Okay. Anything that can potentially be helpful to the defendant, by law, they have to give that to the defense team. Okay. In addition, they're going to get any evidence that was touched by any of the witnesses they're calling to testify.
Mm-hmm.
All of that will be given to them. They're going to get only the evidence associated with testimony.
Right.
If somebody is not testifying, or there's a piece of evidence that's not being utilized, then they don't get that information unless it's beneficial to the defense team, and then they have to, by law, give that to them.
Here's another thing, Ed, that gets people, because I watch Andre Burkhart. That's Burkhart Law. She's got her own YouTube channel. She was on with both of us. So Princess says, Ms. Burkhart said that the documents said that there was no explanation for absence of DNA in his car, apartment, office, or mom and dad's home. That insinuates no cleanup as no evidence of cleaning. I'm not sure exactly, but
that doesn't insinuate that at all.
Yeah. And the last time Ed and I checked, okay, Andrea, great criminal defense attorney, but she's not an expert when it comes to evidence and DNA collection. And again, all of us, including her and including everybody that's here, we don't know the enormity of what they have.
And there's a gag order. So where's all this coming from?
Yeah, we're just basing it on the statements in the defense. And again, these court documents are limited in their scope because all of the evidence and everything has not been fully released. So it's just based on what the defense is stating for their client to try to, to do their job, to represent them. And that's it. It's just getting a lot of people confused, Ed.
Yeah, these are the statements that are being made in open court, right? Because the gag order is for the defense team as well.
Right. Yeah. Hey, News Nation had Mark Garagos on, and he made some good statements along with Jennifer Koffendorfer in regards to the defense asking for these training records. But I want to just play this. I'm not a big fan of Cuomo, but the two guests he had on, I want to just let the audience hear what they had to say. And thank you so much, Emily, for that wonderful message. She sends in I can't highlight those messages from the members, the free ones, but I'm scrolling back because Emily sent in, she was our very first channel member, Ed, by the way. She said, thanks for all you do, for all your content and the pursuit of justice to you and Ed. Thank you, Emily. Thank you for that. Here's the little piece with Cuomo.
Win in court. Why? Well, the judge did grant the defense access to the training records of 3 of the police who participated in the investigation that led to his arrest. Why? Well, that's the question. But here's the simple answer, okay? Because you can create the appearance of doubt by looking into who did the investigation and seeing if they are flawed in a way that could have affected their judgment. Let's bring in former FBI agent, News Nation law and justice correspondent Jennifer Coffindaffer, and high-profile defense attorney Mark Garagos. Mark, as a practitioner, what do you do with this kind of information?
You do exactly what they are doing, and it's a little bit infuriating that they're being accused of trying to do something that's untoward. They're doing exactly what a defense lawyer should do,
Which is?
which is challenging the evidence as it comes in. They should be challenging everything as it comes in. They're not the ones who have the duty to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. The prosecution does.
Now, we remember this, not you, Coffindaffer, you're too young, but in the OJ prosecution, Mark Furman became a household name, especially when defense counsel found evidence of what they argued as prejudice and bias, and that maybe it affected how he did things, and maybe there was sloppiness. How concerning is this for the investigators?
It's not concerning because it's training records. I think what they're going for is to show that these officers aren't well trained and aren't well educated in terms of how they're doing their interviews, how they were conducting their crime scene investigation. But when you look at it, Chris, they are getting training records of people the prosecution isn't even calling on the stand. They're getting training records of individuals who were with other individuals that were looking at the same information. An autopsy, it's the ME that's going to testify about that, not these individuals. Other people who were interviewed, again, they were with multiple people. Those people will be called. So it's not like they have singular information. So it will fall flat, and those records should have been provided anyway.
Well, look, I believe in transparency, so it's good to have it. I have one other quick question for both of you. I don't understand this rush to take down the House. From the university perspective, from the prosecution perspective, and from the defense, right? So first we'll do prosecution, Jennifer. Why? I know the university wants to get it down because they're afraid that it'll affect people's perception of the campus and campus life, et cetera. But why wouldn't the prosecution say, no, we never know if we're going to need it?
It's surprising to me, Chris. That house needs to stay up there. It's so important for these jurors to understand spacing, to understand what you could hear in that house, to look from Dylan Mortensen's eyes as to what she could have seen and how it all played out. I think it's a terrible move.
Yeah, I see that from the defense.
So that's it. I want to just play that because they covered the two things that we're talking about.
She said something interesting that kind of threw me. She knows that these three officers that they're requesting their training records for are that
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised by that too. Again, we now found out tonight by listening closely that it's two Idaho state police officers and one obviously from the Moscow Police Department. So I would think, Ed, from our experience, that would be the first officer that got the call, the 911 call, right? The first officer on the scene is always the first to testify in a trial. But
typically.
Yeah. So, and again, folks, we're speculating, but this is speculation coming from a lot of experience because Ed and I have both testified at trials. So when you're the first officer on the scene at a homicide, or a major event, the defense, the prosecution is going to call you first because that's how the story starts. That's how the crime is presented to the jury. It goes in chronological order, first responding officer. So officer number one, according to Ann Taylor, is probably going to be the Moscow Police Department first responding officer who took the 911 call and was dispatched. And then the other two, she said, were her own words, Idaho State Crime, Idaho Police, Idaho State Police. So
Karen Cole wrote, they said the officer would not testify in the hearing. Okay. In what hearing? Because the way Jennifer said is that the officers would not be testifying in the trial. And that's what I heard.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
what I heard too.
But if it doesn't make a hill of beans about the hearing. She targeted these 3 officers for a reason. I mean, you're not just willy-nilly out of the numerous officers that were involved in this investigation, pick on these 3 officers to find out what they're training on, especially if they're not testifying, if they didn't do something critical. Okay. I mean, she sees something, the defense attorney sees something here, a gap that she's looking to exploit. Let's put it that way. Okay.
And again, I'll read her words. These officers conducted critical interviews with critical witnesses. And it has to be, obviously the eyewitness in this, one eyewitness in this case, as we know, there's only one. And then witnesses on the scene who were there. We got word, and it was never official, that there was multiple people, multiple kids, multiple young adults at the 1122 King Road, and were called there. Cell phones were used, different cell phones were used to call 911 for an unconscious and so forth. So at the end of the day, it said conducted critical interviews with critical witnesses. In this case, they made decisions about interviews and evidence. And again, that ties in the state, Idaho State Police with evidence, and conducted other investigations, critical investigations. She also asked, and we didn't play it, the FBI CAS team items number 1 and 6, cell phone investigations from December of 2022. And then, just that's where it ended. So it is what it is. Ed, there's going to be so much that's going to come. The news is going to try to talk about this as much as they can. And they're going to create as much controversy and conversation as they can, because that's their job. But there is still a gag order. We heard from Shannon Gray, who's the attorney for the Gonzalez family, and he's also saying, and he's pleading with the University of Idaho to reconsider the demolition of 1122 King Road. And I think most professionals are in agreement that there's no rush, and there is no good gosh darn reason to take that residence down, because you could just do it after the trial's over.
Yeah. Do you have the court order?
I have it. It's long. It's like 100 and something pages. And so, I mean, I do have it, but that's not what the live stream's about. We're not going to get into that and go into it. But I do want to play this. This is from Enton's Twitter feed, and it's Shannon Gray, the attorney.
We want to know what you think, but then
hold on. It was a little premature, but I want to play. This is just a short little 1 minute.
I hate it when that happens.
1 minute clip, because we're not going to play it all. Let's let this rock.
they've taken this stance where we want to know what you think, but then we don't really want to listen to what you think if it doesn't agree with our line of what we want to do with the house. So it's beyond me, and it's beyond the families, the Gonzalez family in particular, about why they're demoing the house, why they're moving so fast. I think we've expressed, over and over again to them that it's important to just keep the house there just in case someone needs it. And then when the trial's over, do whatever you want with it. And the response has basically been, victims' families spend legal money to give us a legal argument on why we shouldn't have to be able to demo the house, which I find is just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, it's interesting that they asked the families what they thought, and even hearing from most of the families that they didn't want the house to be demolished, they're still going forward with it anyway. Can the prosecutors do anything? I mean, obviously the families are in close contact with the prosecution. Can they not step in and say, hey, can you guys just, wait 6 months or so?
Well, I think that's part of the non-dissemination order, right? I'm an attorney that's involved. I can't comment on what I think the prosecutor should do, what I think the defense should do, any of those things, right? So I think the Gonzalez family and it seems that the prosecution and the defense have both released the house. And I think everyone can make their own opinion on that, but I can't comment on it because of the non-dissemination order.
I understand. One of the things that's been hard to track, Shannon, is the timeline on the demolition because, they said it was going to happen imminently at one point, which was quite some time ago, and now they're still removing items from the house, but it is still standing. Are they giving the families or you any more specifics on a timeline?
No, not really.
So that's it. The interview went a little further, but it gets cut off there. University of Idaho has said that they were going to do it before the semester was over. The semester came and went. They didn't do it. And there's got to be a reason why they keep delaying it, Ed. Maybe they're unsure as well, and they're getting pushback that we don't even know about. Any thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I think it's disrespectful for the families to ask for their input and then ignore them. Second of all, I don't understand the prosecution. This is an easy one. Go to the judge, put a halt to all of this. Hang on to the house until after the trial.
Right.
What is so difficult about making this determination? I don't understand it. What is the urgency to take down the house? What is it? It's not a financial issue to the university.
It was given to them.
So what is the issue?
Yeah. In the name of justice, it just doesn't make any sense. And if, in fact, the university is that concerned about their former students who were brutally murdered here, that I think that they would yield and say, hey, wait a minute, maybe we made a mistake here. But it doesn't seem like that's happening. But we don't know. We don't know what kind of conversations are going on. And I would love to hear from somebody that may have more information in regards to the thought process from the University of Idaho. But again, the property owners gave that house, they signed ownership over to them, and then they have talks of making some memorial garden or a dog park and or memorial garden. If they do that, it's going to be the same concept of what they're saying is, or what people are speculating of why they want to get rid of the house, because they feel that it's not going to attract new students to come onto that campus. It's an off-campus. First of all, it's an off-campus property. It's not on the University of Idaho's campus. It's very close, but it's not on the campus. What do you got, Ed? Scotty Boy is in the chat.
Scotty Boy with the NYPD Detective Bureau pin there saying, absolutely, Ed, but the school wants it gone because of bad PR and a distraction. I get that, Scott, but somebody at the school has to understand the potential impact on the prosecution in this case.
Right. Yeah. And that's the most, like, for me, I get that what they're looking to do, right? But look to do that after justice is served. Now, I wanted to add in our good friend Cindy. She is a great friend of Crime Time with DutyRon. I consider her a personal friend. She's invited me to come and hang out there in Pullman and in Moscow to see how great the community is there. And it would be my honor to go and take a peek around there. But again, for our audience, I want to get Cindy's thoughts because she's a resident of that area. Her child went to some of the schools in Moscow, so I want to hear what she has to say because I value what her thoughts are. So welcome, Cindy. How are you doing? I hope you had a good 4th, and thank you for taking out time on a Friday night.
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Sound great, Cindy.
Hi, Ed. Long time no see.
Yes.
Yeah, I had a good 4th. I really didn't do anything. I've been having some problems at work, so I was writing writing some things and spent some time with my dog, and he doesn't mind the fireworks, so we just kind of hung out, and every once in a while he would go "Rah-roo," so I'd bring him a treat, but we just went to bed at midnight. So
he's part of the minority. My dog's hiding underneath the couch. Could you just introduce yourself to the audience? Tell them about where you live, what's your connection to Moscow and Pullman and so forth.
Sure. So I've lived in the Pacific Northwest since 1993. I first lived in a really small town, which I'm from upstate New York originally, joined the Navy, and then moved here, fell in love with the landscape. And I went to a small college in Washington State, and then I went to another small college in Lewiston, Idaho. And I would always go up to this place called Moscow. It's just 45 minutes away. And I just fell madly in love with Moscow. One of the first places I ever visited was called Tie Dye Everything. And I was like, oh, this place is great. Very neat community. So when it came time to go to graduate school, I left the area for a while and went to a place called Bellingham. And then when it came time to go to get a different degree, I said, I got to go get the Master of Fine Arts in Moscow at the University of Idaho. Go Vandals. So I moved to Moscow in 2002, and I lived there ever since. And I've worked at Washington State University, where Kohberger was a grad student, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Then I went and worked at University of Idaho for a while for the College of Law. And then I came back to Washington State University just because Washington State just pays a little bit better, unfortunately. And then I moved to Pullman in July of 2021. So right now I live in a little manufactured home. I own it. And I live probably just 3 blocks from where Kohberger lived. And my graduate assistant lived across the street from him. So it was really weird when everything went down. I was like, ugh, like his apartment is right there. So
what was that like, Cindy? Shortly after he was collared, after the New Year's Eve 2022 going into 2023, when that news broke on January 1st, what was the talk of Pullman, Washington, that Bryan Kohberger was the alleged perpetrator in these murders?
Well, the interesting thing is that, so my daughter, Jessica, who just turned 31, she graduated from Portland State University. Really excited, went and saw her. She's the one who got me into true crime, like in 2019. So I've been a follower for, that long.
Right.
She's the one who even told me like to get on TikTok. So I started following all this stuff. So she and I were really connected, and she was like, oh my God, I can't believe this. And I remember us being, we had gone to this place, and when you bring your wife, Ron, we'll go eat there. There's a place called the Ale House, and we had gone there, and we were freaked out. It was like a week after the murders, and we didn't know anything. And I remember us just sitting there and eating and looking around, and anyone who came in were like, oh my God, that could be him, right? So my daughter and I followed the case. And am I allowed to talk about another podcast?
Yeah, sure.
Is that okay with you? Okay. So I was on another podcast, and you guys might know, Surviving the Survivor. Joel Waldman had me on as a, what did he call me? Concerned parent, because my son went to Moscow High, which is, well, it ended up being where the jail is. So later on, that would be really weird, because they would say, like, the kids will make sure that everything's just so small. But
right.
Anyway, so I'm on the podcast with Joel, and I remember at the end of it, I sent him an IM, and I said, I really hope they catch this person. He said, don't worry, they will. The next morning, my daughter said, Mom, they arrested someone.
Wow.
I was like,
before Kohberger was arrested, you guys had him in fear.
We were, everybody was freaked out. And I remember, and this is so crazy, right? Because the suspect committed the murders in Idaho, in Moscow, where I went to school. My daughter knows that area so well, because even though she didn't go to U of I, she loved Fratlantis, which is what they call it. And she's been to all those houses. I don't think she was in that particular home,
wow.
But they're all connected and they all party there. And so even though my daughter was in Portland, we were on all those TikTok videos, watching everything, watching who they were accusing, thinking once in a while, oh my gosh, maybe it is that, watching the grub truck video, which my daughter is a huge fan of the grub truck. Like, she was for her, it was even scarier, even though she didn't live here. So
Right.
yes, we were all super panicked. And every time I would drive from Pullman to Moscow, I would get this like lump in my throat. And then when they said who it was, I immediately IM'd my kind of mediary supervisor, and I said, oh my God, it's a grad student and he's a TA. Like, we're in charge of grad students and TAs. I've never met him, never seen him, never had any interaction, because my job's actually marketing.
Uh-huh.
That was like, how is this possible that our 9-mile connection, my love of Moscow and how much I'm so connected to Moscow, but I've worked at WSU for 11 years and 7 of them are at the grad school. It was just mind-boggling. And then my GA, who I love, and I would go to her house and drop her off because she doesn't have a car. I drop her off and I'm like, isn't that house across the street from you? Isn't that where he lives? And she said, yeah, I spent the night in that apartment complex, the night of the incident of the murders. I'm like, oh my God, did you hear anything? And she's like, no, but she figured out she had spent the night there with a friend. And I'm like, this is just unreal.
What's your thoughts on them demoing the house before the trial starts?
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I know I talked too much, but everybody was panicked. Yes, Ron, we were scared, terrified. It was crazy.
No worries. You can talk as much as you want. We love you, Cindy, so don't worry about it.
You just brought it all back to me. It's been a while.
I just wanted to set it up for everybody watching.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So that's the whole thing from my perspective. So here's the thing. I know we talked about this months ago. I'm still like completely ambivalent. And I don't mean I don't care. I mean, so I read the New York Times article, and Jody Walker, that's my former boss from U of I, by the way, you guys. She's risen up the ranks to like be the spokesperson. She said they want to get rid of it, and I'm paraphrasing, because they want to move past what has transpired. Okay, so there's the emotional kind of context, which I understand. And Bill Taylor, prosecution, said, I don't have a problem with that. The prosecution said he doesn't have a problem with that. So I'm looking at it logically and emotionally. The Mogans and the Kernodle family, and obviously the Gonsalves family, want to preserve it. They don't want it to go away. And then some neighbors had said it's become kind of this funky tourist attraction. So what it is really to me, it's like one of those crazy rubber band balls, right. So I personally, I don't know what to tell you, because a couple people mentioned OJ, and I'm actually reading Marcia Clark's book right now, Without a Doubt.
I don't like the analogy of this case to OJ. I don't like that at all.
No, me neither.
How do you feel about that?
They're not the same at all, because Marcia Clark walked into OJ's house, or walked into Nicole's house the night of the murder. She saw the blood. She saw everything.
Right.
We've already had the house completely,
Yeah. No. Yeah. There's no doubt that these are talking heads that are bringing up this just because. Okay, let's take a walk back memory lane 29 years.
Right.
Listen, the families want the house preserved because they want justice for their children, for their young adults. Okay, this is the worst nightmare that anybody could ever imagine. As parents, we're all parents here, and if you're not a parent, you're an aunt, you're an uncle, you're right. you're an adoptive parent.
You love somebody.
In the name, and I can't say it enough. I'll scream it from the rooftops. In the name of justice, the house should be left. It is completely cyclone fenced off with a security detail there. Yes, it's become an eyesore. Yes, it's a tourist, people coming around and gawking. Yes, right. But if this trial, let's just say for argument's sake, takes a year to take off. Say if it doesn't hit in October and start off in October, and it starts early in 2024.
Right.
What's the difference in demolishing it in the coming weeks as opposed to just holding on to it until this trial is done. And then after we have, justice, the justice system has been served, justice has been served, and we continue on, then you go and do this. I don't know who's speaking with the powers that be at the University of Idaho, but I'm sure Thompson and the district attorney's office is in communication with them. They are probably close because they're handling all of the crimes in that area. So they speak with the university on a regular basis, probably. So Ed, go ahead.
Let me just say this. The university is not going to put this behind them by just tearing down the house, because the trial is still going on. There's going to be a trial, and it's going to be high publicity. There's no getting around it. So pump the brakes, let the trial go on, let it conclude, and upon conclusion, take the house down.
Yeah.
Okay. I said it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it.
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Right.
I don't understand the prosecutor, and maybe it's a lack of experience on the prosecutor's part to say that he doesn't have a problem with them tearing the house down. Well, what if it comes up at trial that the jury is hung, but they want to go visit the house, and now the house is gone.
I wonder if it has anything to do with this. And I've worked, I think 14 of my years in my career, I've worked in academia, and I'm absolutely positively sure that Bill Thompson and Scott Green have known each other for a long time. Like, Scott Green is the president of the university. For any of you that don't know, he was born and raised in Moscow. There's stories about him running the streets when he was a little kid. So if you can imagine being completely tight-knit, as tight-knit to your community as you possibly could be. But let's set that aside for a second. If there is pressure from the regions, right, that they're the ones that say you need X amount of students, you need to have X amount of applicants, X amount of admissions, X amount of this. And I am being completely hypothetical, but I'm coming from someone who's worked in academia. If any of that pressure is on them, and I'm just saying, this is just for like poops and giggles. I don't know, because you're absolutely correct. Like, I listen to so much true crime and I watch so much true crime, and somebody said it in the chat and you just said it, Ed. We have crimes that happen in towns that have what? Like Leopold and Loeb. How old is that crime? Like, there's stuff that this is going to affect Moscow forever.
You can't erase history. This is history. Yeah.
It is. And I love the town. And this does not affect how much I love that town. I would move there tomorrow. I like it so much better than Pullman. It just, there was no houses. And you want to know why there's no houses there? Because people love it. People do not sell their houses there. My house sold. I bought my house for $149,000. I sold it for $325,000.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, because it's a beautiful place. It's a safe community. Yes, this happened, but that dude, he's from the Poconos.
Crime knows no boundaries.
No,
Crime knows no boundaries.
Anyway.
This crime is not a reflection of the people of that community, because
Absolutely.
he didn't come from that community.
No.
Okay. And in fact, he was in school in another state.
Right.
Okay. And so he drove across state lines to commit this heinous act. If what the prosecution says is true.
Him.
Okay. If that's true. And again, and he's not a resident of Washington.
No.
He's not a resident of Idaho. He's a resident of Pennsylvania. Okay.
I want to present this to you, Cindy, and this is just me kind of spitballing here a little bit and trying to throw some maybes and what ifs.
Okay.
Do you feel that there might be a possibility that the powers that be at the University of Idaho just do not like the idea that people are telling them that they can't do what they set out to do in good faith? They probably had the best interest from the beginning. From what I pay attention, in the beginning, they said to help students move on from this, to the healing process they talked about. So do you think that there's a possibility that because now the whole world is telling them don't do this, that maybe they're just pouting their, putting their chest out and saying, we made a decision. We feel it's in the best interest of our kids and our students. We're going to stick to this, and just a stubborn, and I could be wrong, but
Right.
I just want to get your thoughts on that.
Well, I would say no for two reasons, and I know where you're coming from, because I think that might be a different school. I would say no for two reasons, and I'll tell you why. Number one, and this is absolutely my opinion, but number one, I think that the way that Scott Green reacted, openly crying when he expressed all of this, and I don't know him as a person. I've met him a couple times, and I've had to write profiles of him, because he, before he became president, he's an alum. He gave so much money to University of Idaho. Like, he was one of our top donors. And I used to work in advancement, that's writing about wealthy people that give money. So he's like a true vandal. So that's one reason why I would say no. But the second reason I would say no is because they had talked about it, and I still don't know if this is going to happen, not having the healing garden there.
Mhm.
They had talked about having the healing garden in a different place and just making that flat.
Again, I wasn't saying that this is it.
Oh.
I just was trying to throw out a thought there, and just to get your opinion.
Yeah.
Here's somebody who's a criminal defense attorney, and I believe a former FBI agent, Stuart Kaplan. He is the only talking head that I heard say that this house should be demolished. So I want to play this, to be fair. So I want to play this. It's really just a short little thing. So let me just play this quick.
Special Agent and Attorney Stuart Kaplan is with us now. What's the harm in keeping this house where it is until this investigation and every possible piece of evidence could be collected?
Good morning, Marnie. So let me just, for the viewers, generally evidence is identified, it's photographed, it's videotaped, it's cataloged, and then is collected for safekeeping should it be needed or necessary to introduce at a trial. And evidence must be relevant and must be probative. In this case, once the police department released the crime scene back to the owner of this house, that house no longer was in the same state as it was when, unfortunately, these 4 young people were slaughtered. And so the argument is that it would not have any probative value with respect to the potential of a juror or juries or a jury to come through that house and see it in the present state, because it would be a misrepresentation as to the way it was at the time the police responded to the scene. Now, with that being said, the fact that crime scene took photographs and video, those photographs and those video will be the substitution to be introduced as evidence so that the jury can get a full understanding as to the way the premises was found after the police arrived on scene. I understand the emotional, symbolic reason to keep the house in the current state that it is, but it would not be necessary for a juror or juries to come through this house since it is no longer in the state it was at the time the crime was committed.
Ron, cut it off, Ron. Ron, cut it off. I can't hear any more of this. This is ridiculous.
I was just going to say, Ed, what do you think about this?
I don't know this gentleman, but I disagree with him and totally. Now, she didn't premise the question properly. All the evidence has been collected already. All right. Keeping the house is not about going back and collecting evidence.
Right.
Keeping the house is about going back, if the jurors so desire, so they can see and hear things in the house. Now, yes, looking at floor plans, if you can read floor plans, architectural floor plans of the crime scene, looking at photographs, looking at videos, looking at 3D laser scans, yes, that's all good. That's all great. Okay. But you can't hear anything. You can't hear squeaks in the steps. You can't hear the door squeaking if the door opens or closes. You can't hear what it sounds like for the kitchen sliding door to open and close. You can't see what it's like in the dark from the bedroom where the witness, this lone survivor, saw the individual in the dark clad clothing, all that. You can't duplicate that with the scans, with the photographs, with the videos. Okay. It's not about showing the jury how it looked that night by going back there. Okay. It's giving them a better understanding of the layout of the house, the 3 floors, and what was all going on the 3 floors, and how you gain entrance and egress and so forth, and
Like the
ascending
time-
stairs,
the
descending
time-
stairs,
the
all
time
of that.
how this crime occurred is going to come out in the trial. It's going to come into play. And to have the home and to have them see, or even just be able to walk up those stairs themselves, because there's a sequence of how this all went down. And they may want to be able to go and see this. They may or may not. But if it's not there, it's going to screw things up. And why? In the name of these 4 victims, Anna, Ethan, Madison, and Kaylee, and their families, because the victims' families are saying, we don't want a chance having a miscarriage of justice here because the home was demolished.
And
Yeah,
we don't know yet the sequence, but they know the sequence, don't they?
Right.
And this college has got to put these 4 victims first. Okay.
Right.
Not the college, not the students, not the faculty and the staff. These 4 deceased students come first. And the trial is a part of this student's legacy, and that school has to support the criminal justice system.
Right.
Yeah. I just wanted to play that to be fair, because this gives he was the one and only that I did some very deep digging. Cindy, you know, and Ed, I'm pretty thorough.
No, I'm laughing at Ed because someone said I love a feisty Ed. No,
Yeah,
I really appreciate that, because
you got
actually, Ron, what you did by showing the opposite one was actually helped me understand better why it probably should be kept. Because after listening to Ed, and many people have made these like videos, like animated videos where they show their theory of how he did it, like their theory of where he went in first and all this, but we really don't know that until the trial. But when you think of how quickly he murdered those kids, like what was it, 12 minutes?
We don't 100% know, because we'll find out when the trial commences. So this time frame is a combination of speculation and some of the stuff in the probable cause affidavit. Right.
But
so
it was a really short amount of time.
it's a short amount of time,
Right.
but it's up to the crime scene investigators. Ed has processed over 2,500 crime scenes. Okay, of all different variations: stabbing, shootings, car accidents. You know,
it's more than that, but I'm not going to correct him.
God, yeah, correct me. Go ahead,
Unbelievable.
correct me. What is it? 2,876.
Oh, stop.
But my point is Ed has done thousands of these crime scenes, and he knows that the reconstruction, the evidence leads you to your determinations, and we're going to be hearing from the medical examiner's office, crime scene detectives, evidence collection, FBI, state, and so forth. So everybody in the chat is drinking right now. All the people who don't normally drink are drinking. Ed having his little Jack and Coke or whatever he's having here. Listen, again, you could drive yourself nuts and go down rabbit holes with people's thoughts and opinions. That's all they are, you know, and everybody has something to say about this. And I kind of try to keep it pretty simple and straightforward, because we know that until this trial commences, everything that you're listening to on these podcasts and even on these news pieces that they do nightly, all of it is good. You could throw it out the window, because when you hear what the prosecution presents and for their case, there's going to be a lot of jaws open. There's going to be a lot of people eating pieces of humble pie. There's going to be a lot of what, you know, and oohs and ahs. So
and one last thing. if the shoe were on the other foot for these people in the university making the decisions, if it was their children that were murdered in the house,
right,
would they want that house to be there for the jury so that there's no excuse for a hung jury, or there's no excuse for having lost this case because a juror wanted to go to see this house and they were hung in deliberations, wanted to go and see this house, and they can't now because you tore it down.
Yeah.
Ed, why don't you write a letter to the Daily News, a letter to the editor? I can send you the address.
It's a waste of time. I'm drinking Poland Spring. I know everyone tells me I shouldn't drink it out of these plastic bottles, but I am not drinking any alcohol, just an FYI. Not that it would be bad because it's a Friday night, but what I'm saying is that we have a whole combination of people who drink and don't drink, and I think that some of our non-drinkers have poured themselves a little cocktail because we've covered so much here. Hashtag Ed, hashtag DutyRon. Let's do 5 minutes of questions in the chat. Let's say hello to everyone. If you want, let us know where you're watching, city and state. Just put it in the chat, or outside the country. Let us know where you're watching, and I'll scan the chat for the questions. But I want to say, Cindy, thank you for being our connection to Moscow and Pullman, because the connection that you have, we can't replicate that. We would never speculate and say, hey, this is what people are thinking, and we get it from you, and I appreciate that you are willing to come up and do that with us. So thank you.
I really love it, and I love that that I've become a friend to you. And I've been absent for a while because so much has been going on. You know, my son turned 18 2 days ago, and today he took a trip all by himself down to LA to go stay with friends. And I'll tell you, I was weepy last night.
No.
Sounds like he made it, and he's going to have a great time. So big.
All right. Stay safe. Stay safe.
I'm going to stay safe. Carrie is saying Fireball Friday. Fireball Friday from Washington. Greetings from Ireland. Hello, Marie. Thank you for joining. Litchfield Hills is here. Let me see. St. Louis, Missouri. Smitty. Hey, Smitty. Good to see you. Okie dokie from Connecticut. I'm going to be in Mystic, Connecticut next month for my wife's birthday. She's
the usual birthday pilgrimage.
Don't say how old she is.
She's going to be 59. What am I going to? She's the same age as me.
Okay.
No. Jeez. How many times I got to teach you how to say this?
Cut it out, Wallace. Julie Knight is checking in from Victoria, Australia. Put another prawn on the Barbie. Norma Guerrera is in California. Thank you for joining. 411 now. He's over on the West Coast.
Tri-Cities.
Yes. Drinking water is hot here. It's hot here, DutyRon. Yeah.
It is.
Hot everywhere. It's we're under a worldwide heat wave, according to what my international news told me. Watching from Wyoming, Patty Lehmans. Thank you. Thank you for watching. Hello from Nashville. There's people checking in from all over Delray. I know it's hot as heck down there too. A couple of friends from Florida here. What are you seeing, Ed? Ed, I'm okay.
Walla Walla.
Yay. Hey, Cindy. Good to see Cindy. Kristen. Starting to lose my mind. Kristen, let's unpack that. Prayers. Her husband came home from the hospital. He was in the hospital fighting. He had a procedure for his cancer treatment. And Chris is home now. So welcome home, Chris. And thank you to everyone who prayed for them.
Best wishes.
Niagara Falls. Ed, didn't you go down in the barrel once?
Slowly I turn, step by step.
Oh, hell no.
Where's Abbott and Costello?
Oh, Ed, my father used to say that all the time.
It was Niagara Falls and the Susquehanna Hat Company.
Susquehanna.
All right.
Slowly I turn.
So in the process of me asking everybody where they're from, everyone just lost their mind, and
I love it.
They're going crazy. Mobile, Alabama. Not one hashtag Ed or hashtag DutyRon or hashtag Cindy for what? Not one question. Nobody gives a crap anymore.
Because it's late on a Friday night and it's time to go to bed.
They're all drunk. Yay.
Ed's gonna start singing soon, so we better wrap this thing up. All right, listen. I think we covered Bryan Kohberger's defense getting the training records. It's a standard operating procedure. Bill Thompson held it back for whatever particular reason. I'm sure he had a legal reason he did that, but the judge ordered him to release it. All of it is in Ann Taylor and her. Did anybody find it a little bit odd when Ann Taylor and two of her co-counsel, the male and female, walked in and the smirks on their face? I just want to see by a show of hands if anybody found that odd and off-putting. I watched it twice tonight before this, right? So I was like, what the and
I know, I was waiting for Bryan to smile because they came in all chipper and he was doing his normal.
He was the only one that was like
he was not smiling. But I did anybody I found it really interesting, and I love Judge. He's just the sweetest man on the planet. And he was like, I would really appreciate it if people would stop making comments about Mr. Kohberger's face.
Yeah.
Because everybody just, and it's not just Bryan. Everybody does it when a defendant is there. But and I don't have sympathy for him. I'm just saying how interesting it every single time. Yeah, look at that. What's that all about?
I got to go full screen and then we're wrapping it up, Ed.
Yeah,
don't worry.
okay. We can hear him all night.
Yeah, that's the cat that just caught the mouse.
Right.
There's Ann Taylor. This one.
Yeah, right. And then
it's almost like they would, like somebody told the joke before they came in.
Maybe they did. Maybe they told a knock joke.
I don't know. And then Kohberger was the only one that was just like, no, look, he's just like, okay, this is my life here on the line. All right, guys. Whoa, what did I do that?
Oh, Ron, you're the best.
Yes. Well, you are the best. I appreciate it. I have another private message in the chat. I got to see it. Ed says I got to go.
Okay.
His wife's got a gun up to his head, so he's got to go.
Oh, easy. No domestic violence on this channel.
Just kidding.
We know he's joking.
Yes, it was a joke.
Okay.
I want to thank you guys. Cindy, stay with us because we'll end it with all of us here.
Oh yeah, you can go, Ed, but we'll stay.
No,
Okay,
no. I don't want Ed to go. Hold on, stay. Because I got to get upstairs. My wife's hitting the floor. With her foot.
Pounding it with the broom.
I just want to just say to everyone, thank you for being here. Thank you for being civil in the chat. Leave us comments down below. Ask us the questions that you didn't get a chance to ask. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you to the people who take the time to leave comments in the comment section and leave super thanks. You guys are what supports this community. I greatly appreciate it. Patreon supporters, Cindy, you are a Patreon supporter. I thank you for that. The 40, 50 folks who support Ed and I, it helps us to continue to further our research and do things. So thank you for that. Ed's got it. Look, Ed's doing the old wink. Ed, you got something to say before we go?
Stay safe, folks. Stay prepared. Watch your six.
Yes. And as I always say, let's keep these 4 victims in our thoughts and prayers. Zaina, Ethan, Madison, and Kaylee and their families. They need us now more than ever. Let's send them strength, prayers, and positive vibes. And all the folks in Moscow at the university and the surrounding communities, let's pray for them. Let's support them. Let's be kind to them. And let's do the right thing, folks. So good night from New York, Jersey,
Pullman,
Washington. I'm going to see Ed tomorrow in Jersey, so we're going to do a live stream from his encampment there in South Jersey. So it's
I want to go to New Jersey. I want to go.
I'm going to Jersey. I'm going to kick it with Ed for a day or so, and we're going to have a guys' night and day, and we're going to hang out. So it's going to be good.
All righty.
All right.
Take care, guys. Peace and love.
Take care. Peace.